My full name is Wallace Burnell Pyron. And my parents gave me that name because my father had a cousin named Burnell, and they thought that was a good name. And then shortly after that, they tagged Bernie. I'm known more so as Bernie than Burnell, but my full legal name is Wallace Burnell Pyron. I was born August the 21st, 1936, in Clarksdale, Mississippi. That's called Coahoma County. My mother was a beauty operator. My father was a farmer. We lived in Shelby, Mississippi, south of Clarksdale, but the closest hospital was Clarksdale. That's where I was born. And they brought me back to Shelby, Mississippi. My father was a farmer. He managed a farm plantation of 2,000 acres in Bolivar County, Shelby, Mississippi. We lived about 7, 8, 9 miles out of Shelby, out in the country. Cotton was king. My father was a cotton plantation man, and on that plantation, on that farming land, he had about 27 families that lived there. Sharecroppers, people that picked cotton and worked. There were no John Deere tractors. There was only mules. And my father had a big barn and had about like 85 or 90 mules that they used. My mother and father and I lived there until I was about 7 years old, 6.5 going on 7. I started school in Shelby. I rode the bus picked me up and would carry me to school in the mornings. My father managed that farm. He would take me in the afternoon in his arms and take me out to the cotton trailers where they were picking cotton, put me up in that full trailer full of cotton. And these people that were picking the cotton, there was no cotton picker. These were picked by hand, put in a cotton sack. And in the afternoon at about 5 o'clock, they all came to the cotton trailer, and he would weigh the cotton, how much they picked that day, and write it down. And that's how they got paid. Got paid by the pound. My father had a nice little pony for me named Betsy. I had a trailer that he had made in the welding shop. Had a little red mule to pull that trailer. And I just had a real good life. I remember that up until the time that we decided to come to Natchez, Mississippi. And how that came about, in 1945, my uncle, Kelly Pyron, my father was family of 5, 3 boys and 2 girls in that family. My uncle was in Natchez, Mississippi, and he was in the life insurance business. He worked for a company called the National Life and Accident Insurance Company. They're the people that owned the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee. They had a tremendous radio station called WSM, which means We Shield Millions. Their emblem was a big blue shield. And Uncle Kelly was in Natchez. He was a district manager over about 7 or 8 men. They had their offices down by the Eola Hotel on Main Street. And World War II come to an end. And all the men that had been in service, most of them were coming home, had been away from their families and all. these big plants announced they were coming into Natchez. International Paper Company, Armstrong Tire and Rubber Company, Johns Manville. All was found in Adams County, where we lived here now. And they could hit oil just down to 4,000 or 5,000 feet. Didn't have to drill very deep. So because those plants were being built and these people were getting out of the service, my father and his brother, Kelly came down for Thanksgiving to Shelby, out in the country. And he talked my father into coming to Natchez and them going into the furniture business. And neither one of them knew anything in the world about furniture, had never been in it. But my father decided to do that. And he bought a brand new Ford truck so they would have something to deliver the furniture in when they got to Natchez. And we loaded up, my mother and I, and that green Ford truck, 1945, and came to Natchez, bringing our clothes in the back of that truck and some food that she had canned and all. And we moved into Uncle Kelly and Aunt Agnes's house on Auburn Avenue. That was to save rent. They didn't have any children yet, Aunt Agnes and Uncle Kelly. So we lived there for some 4, 5, or 6 months. Each one of them, my father and his brother, had $2,500 apiece. And that's what they put up to start the furniture store with. So they rented a building downtown on Franklin Street from a man named Mr. Bateau Millette. Mr. Millette had a big hardware store next door. And he had a lot of property he had accumulated around Natchez. And so the particular building that they opened up for a furniture store is where Cappy Stallman has his townhouse now on Franklin Street. They rented that building, took their money, went to a jobber over in Monroe, Louisiana, and bought furniture with that money and brought it back to Natchez. The Monroe Furniture sent it to Natchez, and they started into the furniture business. Uncle Kelly stayed in the insurance business in order to make a bread ticket till they could get the store going. So he continued with the National Life and Accident Insurance Company. My father was running the furniture store. Uncle Kelly would come in on Saturdays and work whenever he could. And business just took off. People were coming out of the service. And the federal government passed a bill that everybody, men that were in the service, men and women, they got about $2,500, what they call busting out pay, to help them get their families back together, to get started. Their wives had been working in plants and different things, and so these factories were going to be built here in Natchez. There was no Montebello subdivision in Natchez, not a lot of subdivisions. International Paper guaranteed the building of Montebello subdivision. They started off, they had about 1,000, got on up to 1,500 employees. Johns Manville at one time had 600, 700. Armstrong Tire and Rubber Company had 900 employees, and they all paid real good. And you could just sell furniture just fast as you could get it in. Appliances were hard to get because they had not been manufactured, a lot of them, during the war. So stoves and refrigerators and appliances, they would put those in the basement of the furniture store because a couple might come in and they want to buy just a stove or a refrigerator. Whereas another customer would come in and want to buy a whole household full of furniture, and they had to have a a stove and a refrigerator. We sold wooden stoves made out of cast iron that you could use wood in or coal. Wringer washing machines were the thing, a wringer washer. We sold ice boxes, they did, ice boxes, the beginning of refrigerators. And business was just good. After a while, they needed a larger building. So they went down the street to 609 Franklin Street and rented a building from two old maid ladies, Miss Campisi. And they rented that building and remodeled it a little bit and moved down there. Had glass fronts put in and all. The name of the store was Pyron Furniture. That's where it started out. Wallace and Kelly were partners. After a while, my father found out about the loan business. So he opened up his first loan company inside the furniture store and named it Home Loans. And he was lending money out and making interest on it. And it just did real good. The people would come in and buy furniture. They'd borrow money. And everybody paid back by the week or the 2 weeks, no monthly payments. As a teenager, I was working in there, writing receipts and dusting furniture, riding on the truck with the delivery men. I forgot to tell you that when we came to Natchez, I had just finished the 2nd grade and went into the 3rd grade in Natchez Public Schools. Carpenter School over there on Washington Street and Pine Street. Has a swimming pool in the bottom of it. I started in the 3rd grade there, a school teacher named Mrs. Prince. Later on, I went to school at the Institute building downtown, which is Natchez Historical Association now. I started in the 4th grade there. At about the 5th or 6th grade, I got into the band. They talked me into getting in the band and playing a saxophone, which I did all the way through high school, which was good. I enjoyed it. So I went the rest of my education here in Natchez and grew up, had friends. My father loved the farming business and the cattle business. So he had a big place, 1,200 acres out on Highway 84. He started buying cattle and putting them out there, white-faced cattle. He was a farmer at heart. I went through the schools in Natchez, graduated in 1955. That's the year of Elvis Presley in blue suede shoes. Elvis Presley come into good popularity and it just went over real big. The 50s were real good years. As I said, I graduated in 1955 from Natchez High School. 110 students. Of those 110, there's only about 42 or 43 left right now continually living. Had a lot of friends in high school. Dixie Jo, my first cousin, she graduated with me. One afternoon after Christmas, I came into the furniture store running from high school, and I asked the manager, Ned Porter, I said, where's my daddy? He said, he's out there in the backyard. You going out there? He's in the backyard. So I went out there in the backyard, and sitting up on a hill was a brand new Ford 1955 Crown Victoria. This is a picture of it. 55 Crown Victoria. And it was just that color, pink and snowshoe white. And they had got that, he and my mother gave that to me for a graduation present out of high school. And it was some car. Everybody in Natchez still remembers that car that's living. Those students, and they remember burning that pink car. So I had a good graduation from high school. My father was still farming. I decided to go to the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. And I went over there with some schoolmates of mine. There was 4 of us to a room in Forest County Hall. That was the name of the dormitory. And we had a good time there. I joined a fraternity, Kappa Sig fraternity, and going to school, and I was taking geology and English and math and history and all of that. And I really wanted to study business because I like business, I guess because I grew up in it. So I heard about this business college in Kentucky, and how good it was. There were 2 or 3 men in Natchez, CPAs, that had gone there. So my father and I went up there that summer and checked the school out, what have you. I liked it. He said I could go there. And so the next year I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky, to Bowling Green Business Academy. They had another college there called Western Kentucky State College. So I started in there in business and really liked it. I had classes on public speaking. I got some awards there, studied economics. The gentleman that run the draft board in Natchez, Mr. Irick, called me one day, and I went down to his office, and he told me, he said, Bernie, the next time I get a call to be people to be drafted, he said, you're going to be one of them whenever I get that call. So you have the choice. You could join the National Guard or the Army Reserve and go to meetings one night a week and go off to summer camp in the summer. And you would have to serve only 6 months active duty, 5.5 years reserve duty. Lanius was working for the Chamber of Commerce, and we were doing real good. So anyway, I decided to join the National Guard out on Liberty Road. I went out there and joined it. They met every Wednesday night for 2 hours and learning this and that. Went off in the summertime for 2 weeks camp over in Camp Shelby outside of Hattiesburg. I had to go off for 6 months active duty in the United States Army. They sent me up to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I was up there for 6 or 7 weeks going through basic training. Then they sent me to Fort Bliss, Texas, out on the Mexico line, and I served the remainder of the time there. Lanius was in Natchez working. I finished that 6 months, came home, and while I was home without a job, I was contacted by the National Life and Accident Insurance Company, the same company that my Uncle Kelly had worked for. And I put in an application with them. My father told me, he said, that's a good company. You can learn how to manage your time and probably make a good living. And I went to work for the National Life and Accident Insurance Company. The National Guard throughout the country was going to be called into active duty because of the Berlin crisis. And the Russians over there, between Germany and Russia, they were going to break out and come through that wall, so they called it the Berlin crisis. And it showed in there that the company that I was with in Natchez, Mississippi, 367th Ordnance Company, would be called into active duty like September the 1st. So that was a big blow. I had to leave the insurance company. They were very good to me. All of us, 125, 130 men, went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, a beautiful post to be on. Consisted of 45,000 acres. This is where the 82nd Airborne would jump out of those airplanes and run up and down the street every morning, jogging, hotty-toddy. But it was a good year there. I rented an apartment. Lannis came up. She brought the puppy dogs, and we were able to travel up to Washington, D.C., Myrtle Beach, and so it was a good year spent, really was. I was there when President Kennedy flew into Fort Bragg, and I could see him through binoculars there at the airport, and he put that green beret on the special warfare. That's when they first started, those men. And so I really had a good time in that service. We knew it was coming to an end. So Lannis came back home, got a job, and then I got out and came back with the National Life because they had paid me pretty good for every month that I was in the service. I came back to the National Life and went to work for them and just did real good with them. I was with them a total of 6.5 years. In 1963, a gentleman had a furniture store on 68 St. Catherine Street called Hudson Newman. He and his brother-in-law were in the furniture business, and they were doing real good. My father's manager was working for them. He had worked for my father. So called Hudson Newman. And they had got into some domestic problems with their wives, and they split up partnership. And things started going down. And Mr. Hudson declared bankruptcy in that store. I found out about it, and I went to my father. I'll never forget, he was in a reclining chair. He was raising cows and all. And I told him that I wanted to go in the furniture business, which I was raised in. So he thought about it and everything, and he said, all right. He said, I'll go in partners with you. But he said, I'll have 51% and you'll have 49% of the furniture store. I said, that's fine. I went and checked out all the money I had in the Natchez building alone. And then I had to borrow about $13,000 for my part. My father had his part. So we took that building that Hudson Newman was in, and they'd gotten all the furniture out of there, had a bankruptcy sale and all. We cleaned it up. My mother was a real good decorator. She just did a lot of wonderful things there on the floor. We opened up September the 10th, 1963. And we named the business. My father came up with the name of Royal Furniture Mart. And that's what we started off with as partners. We were able to get the manager back, Ned Porter. He was working selling cars. We got him back, and we kicked it off with a grand opening there on September the 10th, 1963, cut the ribbon. We had the mayor there, different other dignitaries there, and we got started, and we were putting a furniture store in that was different than what was in Natchez. We had gotten some real good furniture, quality, Thomasville, Henry Don. Money was flowing in Natchez then. Oil business was good. Everybody was working. And the store just really took off. I mean, just real good. And there were some other old buildings attached to that main store. So every year we made some money. We had opened up one of them, remodeled it, put furniture in it. Then we built another building for our Lazy Boy chairs. We had that exclusive in Natchez, Lazy Boy products, sofas and chairs. Business was very good. After being married 8 years, we had a son, the oldest son, named David Burnell Pyron. And we were still living in Montebello subdivision. And I believe Lannis was still working at the Chamber of Commerce. No, she was working for an oil company called Riley Drilling Company, oil company. Yeah, she was working there. And furniture business was going good, very, very good. Then different things happened, marital things. Lannis and I divorced. I hate that, but that's what happened. And then later on, I met Anna Maria, that's Susan's mother. Very, very beautiful lady from Mexico. And we started dating and eventually married. That's where Susan come in, her mother being Anna Maria. And we were married, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. That marriage came to an end. I've always taken care of not only Susan, David, and Blair, the youngest child. So that's the way it went. And then the furniture store was doing good. And one time we had a young lady come in real smart, and she put in an application, and we hired her in the office. Her name was Paulette Doré from over in Vidalia. And she was very smart, and I liked her. And eventually we married. And from that marriage came Blair, the youngest son. So I was blessed with 3 very, very good, wonderful, beautiful wives. I mean, I was really blessed with them. I'm telling you that, that's the absolute truth. And things just didn't work out. Things got out of line. I got out of line. And that's the reason that those 3 marriages ended. And they were all 3 good wives, good mothers. Very good. And I have those regrets to this day. I have those regrets. But that's life. So I have been single for some 24, 25 years now. I've enjoyed that. I've had a good life. Also in my years, I had been blessed to be able to travel. I've been around this world to Spain, to Portugal, France, Czechoslovakia, behind the Iron Curtain, Austria, lots of European countries. I've been able to take cruises going down to South Islands and all, and just had a real good life. And stayed in the furniture business. God blessed us with a good business. So as I sit here today, I've had a disease to come up on me, so they tell me. I've had no problems, no short of breath, no pain, anything, but a test they run on me said that I had lung cancer, which is a big shock to me and to the family and to everybody. So I'm facing that right now, and this coming week, Monday, I'll start treatment with chemo and radiation for a period of at least 6 weeks or 7 weeks, just to see how it goes. But I love God, and God loves me. God has really blessed my life. I've told you that. I have been blessed and blessed. A lot of my friends don't make it to 84 and a half. that I am. Not a lot of them. And I've had good friends that have gone on long before me. And I've had a couple of real close calls with death, knocking on the door of human death. But God has brought me through that, put me back together with screws and pins, scars in my head from accidents with horses and automobile accidents. And I have just really been blessed. I have. I've had a good life, and life is good to me, and I'm looking forward for it to continue. I'm going to take this treatment, and we're going to see how it comes out. I know that God's taking care of me. I know that, my higher power. And so it just come up on me, a great surprise to me. And that's where I'm at today.